And welcome back to NostalgiaCast, where we take a look at your childhood favorite films to see if they stand the test of time or if they're past their prime. I'm Darin Lundberg.
And I'm Johnny Craddock.
And we're coming back to you today with, what did we call it? We called it kind of a nostalgia bite, or that was kind of the goal. But what did you say? It ended up being like a nostalgia appetizer last episode?
Well, yeah, with our first attempt at doing a nostalgia bite, we talked for like 35 minutes. And so it wasn't really a bite. It was more like an appetizer. So we're going to try to keep it down to stay within the nostalgia bite, you know.
Okay, we'll try anyway. And we do like to talk, and we do like bouncing off each other. Again, the point of the nostalgia bite is to not so much rip apart movies or overanalyze them to death. It's more just to take a movie that we've watched in the last little bit. We just wanted to share our love for it. And so today, kind of breaking tradition, but kind of not. I wanted to cover season 1 of Cobra Kai, the YouTube Red show that's now streaming on Netflix. It's breaking rules because we're covering a TV series, but not breaking rules because that TV series is a reboot/sequel to The Karate Kid from 1984. But before we get into that, just briefly, what did we talk about last time?
Okay, well, I chose Short Circuit. We talked about that. I talked about how my opinion of that movie was influenced by my family, and I claimed it as my favorite movie for a long time throughout my childhood. And I really enjoyed the robots and how the actors interacted with the robot in the movie and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was a fun movie. I thought the character was iconic. Johnny Five is an iconic character. And we also talked about some of the actors. Fisher Stevens, one of them. So I think we had a good discussion.
Yeah, it was definitely, I thought it was worth remembering too, mostly for the robotic stuff. The Johnny Five stuff, I thought still worked its magic on me. We did kind of get in a little deep on the problematic issues and the dated 80s attitudes. We talked quite a bit about that. But again, I think even though we might have gotten in a little over our heads, at least we were talking about it. I think we decided that these movies, even if they're problematic, they don't deserve just to be written off completely because they do have a weird attitude.
Yeah, don't write them off. Don't cancel them. Let them be what they are. Just enjoy them for what it is.
And then be able to move on. I think, like you were saying, those who don't read history are doomed to repeat it. So if we kind of brush all that stuff under the rug, we don't really learn stuff about ourselves. So again, Short Circuit, that was stood the test of time movie. Okay, so Cobra Kai.
Who is it?
Banzai! Daniel LaRusso here for LaRusso Auto. We are chopping prices on all of our inventory. Johnny? I knew it was you. This is Johnny Lawrence. He and I go way back.
Oh, this is a guy whose ass you kicked.
Well, if you want to get technical, I kicked his face.
Hey, where you going, Tommy? Oh, I didn't know you guys were trying to buy beer.
Hey! Watch your car, man.
Get the hell out of here, loser.
Was that like Taekwondo or something?
It's karate.
Do you think you could teach me?
I'm driving home from work yesterday, and in this strip mall, I see... After 30 years, I thought that guy might have changed, but he's still the same prick. I heard you beat up a bunch of teenagers.
I didn't beat up any teenagers. I kicked the crap out of a bunch of assholes who deserved it.
Thinks he could bring Cobra Kai back to the valley? Yeah. Not on my watch.
You want those kids at school to keep dumping things on your head? You want all the girls to think you're a wangless dork?
You're gonna be my karate teacher?
No. I'm gonna be your sensei. I'm gonna teach you the style of karate that was taught to me. A method of fighting your pansy-ass generation desperately needs. Okay, let's see what you got.
She's a girl.
And?
I'm sorry.
Are you okay?
Girl's a natural cobra.
You and I, we aren't done.
I guess we should start with Karate Kid. Again, a very formative movie from our childhoods. We talked about this before. Just to give you a little brief summary of my history with the Karate Kid. Obviously, you see a little bit of yourself in Daniel LaRusso. You see that, you feel like you're bullied at school, you're not understood, and then to be able to find somebody like Mr. Miyagi who understands you and teaches you the way, and you're able to fight back and beat the bullies. That's like I said, very formative and very important to your childhood. It's like, Luke Skywalker, we identify with him because we want to be the hero. We want to be the savior of the universe. It's that kind of thing. As far as Karate Kid goes, my history with it, I did see it in the theater. I know that was very impressive for me. And again, it's a good audience movie. It's directed by John G. Avildsen, who directed Rocky. I would say Karate Kid is the Rocky of the 80s, even though there were Rocky movies during that time. Again, a great audience or crowd pleaser. As far as the franchise goes, I saw the second one in theaters as well, obviously, because that was a big draw. I think in some ways, I might prefer Karate Kid Part 2 just because Daniel's not so much of a wet blanket.
Okay.
He's a little more capable, and I like the idea of them going to Japan, and it has that kind of it's got a tone and a feel to it. It's rich in its visuals because it's in that foreign land, and I like that it's more of a Miyagi story with Daniel as the secondary character. And Glory of Love, obviously, that's a big song from back in the day. Karate Kid 3, I did not see in the theater. I know that came out the same year as Batman. Lethal Weapon 2, and so obviously, and Field of Dreams, so it's kind of lost in the shuffle. Watching Karate Kid Part 3, there comes a point in franchises where they get a little uncomfortable, and you reach a point where it's like, all right, I guess this is a bad idea. We've gone too far. Just the idea it's Karate Kid, but Daniel's like in his 30s.
Yeah.
And he's still going through the same motions that he was going through, and he's still bullied, and it's a little more vicious. It just left a bad taste. It wasn't, they bit off more than they could chew. And then the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank, I know that kind of kickstarted her career. I don't think I've seen that one in its entirety. I remember the parts from Miyagi, like he barges into the bathroom and she's getting dressed and she's all embarrassed, that kind of comedy stuff. But it's really cringy, to use that term that the youngins use these days, watching grown boys beating up a girl. And that's the whole movie. It's just, again, it's just too far. It took it to a different level that it shouldn't have gone. But that's my history with that franchise. What about you? What's your history with Karate Kid?
Okay. Well, when you mentioned to me you wanted to do Cobra Kai, I was a little bit kind of like perturbed because I was like, well, I wanted to do Karate Kid. That was going to be it was on my short list of movies I wanted to pick. So you stole my thunder there, but that's okay then. I'll forgive you. But Karate Kid, I didn't see it in the theater. I remember watching it just in my front room, just sitting on the on the rug on the front of the TV, watching this for the first time. I did watch the subsequent films after that one, but I will say that Karate Kid, it was big for me. It introduced me to karate, to martial arts. I didn't become really big into martial arts, but I remember like telling people that I knew karate, even though I never took lessons. But I would say, oh yeah, I know karate, and I'd go out in the yard and I would practice sweeping the leg or practice the crane kick. That was what my friends and I would do, just for fun, go out there and kind of like box and kick each other. So that was part of my childhood. So for that reason, I like this movie. There were some problems I had with it, and I'm not quite sure I noticed these problems back then. But just thinking back on it and watching it recently and everything, I know that I related more to the Johnny character. Maybe because my name is Johnny, but I related to that character. I didn't relate to the Daniel character so much. I found him kind of whiny and complainy, and I didn't like that he was, he was basically the bully in my eyes. He was the one that was constantly like, sucker punching Johnny or like drenching him, while he's in the bathroom stall, and just always kind of like egging him on and causing more problems than he needed to. And so, thinking back on it, I would like to root for Johnny, actually. But I do like rooting for the underdog in movies, and so because Daniel's character was the underdog, I did find myself rooting for him. But I mean, overall, I did like the movie, and it kind of introduced me to other martial arts movies. You mentioned Rocky. I kind of look at, like, you had Bruce Lee and you had Jackie Chan, and then you had the Rocky movies, and they kind of paved the way for Karate Kid. And then after Karate Kid, you had a bunch of other martial arts movies like Bloodsport, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and you had Steven Seagal and Hard to Kill, and a bunch of Chuck Norris movies. So you had all these martial arts movies throughout the 80s, and it was a fun time. And I can say I watched all those movies, and I enjoyed a lot of them. But Karate Kid probably was one of my favorites. And if I had to say which one was my favorite, it would probably be between Rocky and Karate Kid. The other ones, not so much. I didn't really get into the other ones. Like you say, there were problems with them. And I also did not see the Will Smith, Jaden Smith Karate Kid remake. I didn't watch that one. But anyway, overall, I liked it. It was a fun movie for me, and brings back good memories from my childhood.
Right. Yeah, I forgot to mention that the remake there, which was okay. Jackie Chan. Obviously, today, having a scene where Jackie Chan beats up the kid bullies, or a scene where he's supposed to beat up the kid bullies, the best part of that movie, that part was when the kids beat up themselves. He actually tricked them into. So that was a good little twist there. It's interesting that you mentioned there that you thought of Johnny as being the. What is it with us and doing movies with characters named Johnny? We just did one last week. The Frighteners had a character named Johnny. Anyway, but it is interesting how you pointed out that he was kind of not so much the bully. It was more Daniel. And that's one of the interesting twists with Cobra Kai. There's the scene where he's telling Miguel about how, from his perspective, how Johnny saw it. And that is a valid point. You can definitely twist it that way. As far as Cobra Kai goes, I know that it started a while back on YouTube Red. That's where it started. And when I heard about it, I had an inkling, but I didn't. Again, it's one of those things where you hear, oh, they're rebooting Karate Kid, or they're they're reviving it. And you just roll your eyes like this. Now Karate Kid. Like what are we going to expect? And so I didn't bother checking it out. I believe the first scene that I actually saw online was the scene where Daniel and Johnny are in the car, and they're singing the REO Speedwagon together, and I just thought, well, that's pretty funny. They're grown men. Do they still have that rivalry going? And you could tell that they were kind of friendlier with each other, and they had a lot in common. I thought that was great. Mm-hmm. What was your introduction to? And Cobra Kai. Your brother-in-law recommended it to me about a couple of months back, and that's when we got addicted to it. And yes, it is. It's not just a joke show. It's not just a one-note thing. It's an actual full-blooded show about these actual three-dimensional characters who are more three-dimensional in this series than they ever were in the movies. That's something that I kind of want to talk about. But what was your exposure to Cobra Kai?
Okay, well, when you mentioned you wanted to do Cobra Kai, I told you that I'd seen the first 2 seasons. I wasn't totally truthful in that. I'd actually only seen the first 2 episodes of each season. And the reason for that is when it was released on YouTube, they released the first 2 episodes for free. And so I saw it, thought, it'd be kind of fun to watch that. So I, clicked on the first 2 episodes of season 1, watched it, I thought that was good, but I didn't really want to keep watching. And then a few months later, they released the second 2 episodes from season 2. And so I watched those first 2 episodes. And so I was kind of like, I missed all the things in season 1 up to the first part of season 2, but I didn't really feel like I needed to see it because I had like a little recap thing, But anyway, after you mentioned you want to watch it, I went ahead and just started from episode 3, season 1, and then just binged the whole thing. And I'm glad you did this because I've been looking for a show to watch, I was kind of like, you get to a point where Netflix is just boring and nothing's on, you know what I mean? And I'd seen Cobra Kai show up in my list of things to watch, and you said you wanted to watch it. I was like, all right, now's my chance to sit down and actually watch this. And so in like 2 nights, I had the whole thing, I binged the whole thing, and it was fun. It was an enjoyable time. I like the characters now. I like seeing where they are in their lives. I had a problem with Johnny's character being a cliche, like just everything was going wrong for him in the beginning. Like he was totally down the dumps. His car gets, wrecked, and he has to, fight these kids. Everything was going wrong, past due bills. And And then you had LaRusso, whose life was, looking like picture perfect. Had the wife and the kids, and he had the car dealership and everything. But when you think back, I think you mentioned this before. When you think back to the movie Karate Kid, the roles were reversed. Like Daniel was, kind of the poor kid, and Johnny was the rich kid. And now that they've reversed, Johnny's, struggling, and Daniel's successful. And it was kind of fun to see that role reversal. So I liked that. But I didn't like. This was the thing that bugged me the most, and I'm not quite sure why. But I couldn't latch on to the kid characters, the adolescents, the teens in the show. And I don't know if it's because I can't relate to that anymore, or it's because there's so many shows out there that have these, teenage dramas and these what do you call it? Like a love triangles with teenagers and just all these things that I just find super annoying. They put all those things in the show, and I knew they had to have it, and I understood, they had to have that for the conflict for the adult characters. But I loved watching the adult part of the show. Whenever the Johnny was on, or whenever Daniel was on, I was like fully invested. But whenever it was the kids, I just wanted to tune out. And like I say, maybe it's because I can't relate anymore, or maybe it's because I'm just burnt out of all the teenage dramas that are out there.
Yeah. Well, that may be something we want to dive into. Again, with I understand where you're coming from. It's kind of even the nostalgia part of it is kind of redone. Like we have so many shows that kind of, oh, remember this, wink, wink, and they kind of, give you that little, they push those nostalgia buttons for you, but that's all that they're good for. Talking about, Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, I guess the cliche thing to say is that, oh, they had nothing better, they're not doing anything. So yeah, why wouldn't they be, willing to do a Karate Kid kind of revival? It's interesting looking back on their careers. I know Macchio was in The Outsiders in '83. I think that's where he started picking up. And then Karate Kid the next year. And even though he was kind of typecast as LaRusso, he has kept busy. I know he popped up in My Cousin Vinny. It's probably his most memorable show since then. I know he's been in TV series, The Deuce on HBO. I think he was in that. He was in I believe, a Broadway play with Robert De Niro. And so he has been pushing himself. And the same thing with Zabka. He, you get typecast in these roles. The movie that he did after Karate Kid was Just One of the Guys, where he was a bully. And then he was Audrey's jock boyfriend in National Lampoon's European Vacation. And then at that point, I think Zabka did an interview saying that he realized he was being typecast at that point. But then Back to School came along, starring Rodney Dangerfield, where again, they wanted him to star as a bully, and he couldn't turn that down. And so it's kind of like, Christopher Reeve as Superman. You kind of get pigeonholed into that, and that's all people think that you're good for. But Zabka, in the meantime, he kept pushing himself. He studied filmmaking. He ended up being he wrote a short film called Most that was nominated for an Oscar. And then he directed. Talking about Cobra Kai and how that came to fruition, I couldn't find any real history on they settled on Karate Kid, and that's what, this whole history and the filmmakers stumbled upon. I didn't mention Josh Heald is, I think he's the showrunner, or at least one of the main showrunners, and John Hurwitz and Hayden Schlossberg. They kind of spearhead this series, but there's nothing in the history of it more than they were just hired to do it. I don't know if, I don't know how they were chosen or anything like that. But I guess to instigate the show, what really kicked it into gear, there are a couple of things. Zabka, like I said, he started filmmaking. He directed a video from No More Kings called Sweep the Leg, where Zabka stars in it, and he plays kind of a version of himself. He lives in a trailer, and he's got his Cobra Kai friends are in there playing cards. And Martin Kove shows up in it. Ralph Macchio shows up in it.
I have to say, I really like the Kreese character being the Raising Arizona type character. What was the name of that character, Raising Arizona?
Oh man, it was Randall Tex Cobb in that one, but I can't remember his name. It was some kind of bullyish name.
Like the motorcycle demon from Hell Guy.
yeah, absolutely. And so that kind of kickstarted something. And then there was an episode of How I Met Your Mother where Macchio and Zabka guest starred in that, where Barney, like you said, Barney figures out, or he says that he's always thought Daniel was the villain of those shows. And then the other thing was Ralph Macchio showed up in a Funny or Die short called Wax On, F Off, where,
Yeah.
where he's a level-headed family man, and it's funny because they had June Diane Raphael's in it, Michael Learned is in it. They're trying to get him like a resurgence in his career, so they try to turn him from a responsible family man into a drug-addled kind of prick with a controversial past. And so it's just a little 5-minute short. It's really funny. And so those were the only kind of instigators that kicked Cobra Kai into gear there. And again, like we talked about in the first episode of NostalgiaCast with Ghostbusters and all those, the revivals of just people just latching on the nostalgia. I think, like we talked about plenty of times before, nostalgia can be a kind of a dangerous thing if you let that be the defining staple of what you enjoy about these things, because you can kind of be blinded to that nostalgia. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. And I think with Cobra Kai, I mean, this thing is dripping with nostalgia. Like everything is a throwback to Karate Kid, or like, look at, this wax on, wax off scene. Look at how we're going to tie this in. Look, there's going to be a karate tournament at the end. You're going to have, I mean, yes, they kind of twist your expectation a little bit, and they have different, twists here and there. So it's not exactly the same, but it still plays on the same beats and the same formula that you had in Karate Kid. And they're always like, they revisit certain locations, and they, have certain scenes that are very reminiscent of the scenes in Karate Kid. So I thought it was, I liked it. I was having fun with nostalgia. I thought that was fun to see all that. And they did it right. They didn't overdo it, I didn't think, but it was still a lot, but it was still fun. And they handled it the right way. But the one thing I wanted to mention about the nostalgia for me is how Johnny's character is still kind of living in that time period. He's still stuck in the 80s. He's still living. He still has that trophy in his apartment, and he still has the rock and roll T-shirts, and he's listening to Guns N' Roses and Poison, driving his little Firebird or whatever he has. Is it a Pontiac or what is it? I don't know what it is. It's something. But anyway, he's just kind of stuck in that time era, and I think that was kind of fun for me to watch that. But
yeah, like you said, it's dripping in nostalgia. I think it would be dangerous, and it would be less interesting if that's all they did. But the thing that I really, really enjoy is that even though it has those nostalgia hits that we kind of look for, it deepens them and twists them and kind of tweaks them in ways that, like I mentioned before, make these characters three-dimensional. If you really think about it, Karate Kid, the first one, is very straightforward. There's not a lot of twists and turns. It gives you exactly what you expect. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, it's a crowd pleaser. But when you look back on it, it's besides the philosophy of finding your center and all that stuff, there's really nothing too incredibly nuanced or deep about it, especially the further they went into the series. The things that I wanted to talk about with the show, first of all, Zabka Macchio, I think he's kind of maybe limited as an actor. He's kind of mostly the same in everything, which, like we talked about with Gutenberg last time, or Ali Sheedy, nothing wrong with that. But Zabka's the surprise here. I think what everybody forgets in The Karate Kid is that at the very end, when Daniel kicks him in the face and he wins, it's Johnny that gives Daniel the trophy. It's Johnny that hands it to him as he's being lifted by the crowd, saying, Daniel, you deserve it. You deserve this. And so that makes him more of a sympathetic character. We know that he's under the thumb of Kreese. But like I said, Zabka's the surprise here. He's a very, very deft comedian. He's just the way his line deliveries, and he knows exactly what he's there for, and the way that we kind of pity him but look up to him at the same time for how he's down and out and he's, trying to get back on his feet. But he's still stuck in his ways. He's kind of a Rip Van Winkle kind of character, right? What did you think about him being for like 26 or 36 years? He doesn't know what Facebook is, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that. That was the one thing that really caught my attention watching this series was when they're in the bar, Daniel and Johnny are together in the bar, and and they're talking about Allie, Elizabeth Shue's character, and they're kind of reminiscing about her. And Daniel goes, well, I'm friends with her on Facebook. And then Johnny's like, what's Facebook? And then Daniel's like, come on, man. But really, like, honestly, how could you go your whole life and not know what Facebook is? How do you not know what Twitter is? These things are a part of everyday life. They become so, normalized that if you don't know what it is, it's like you're living under a rock or something. But anyway, so it was kind of funny to hear him say, what's Facebook? And then to have, you mentioned him being a comedian and his line delivery. When he delivered this next line, like, it caught me so off guard that I just busted out laughing, and I couldn't stop giggling for like 20 minutes. I had to pause the show because I was laughing so hard. But when he showed Johnny her Facebook page, and you see the doctor that she's married to, and he's just like good-looking guy, successful doctor, and Johnny just stares at that picture for a while and then goes, look at that dumb face. And for some reason, that just struck me as so funny, and I couldn't stop laughing. And just thinking about it now, I still start to giggle because it's just the way he delivered that line. It was so hilarious and so perfect, and the timing was just right on. But so, yeah, I do agree that I think he has some great comic timing.
Yeah, and like I said, he says, I love his face. I don't know what it is. I just adore him, and even though he's flawed, he's trying. The things that we talked about them tweaking our expectations. The things that I really liked, and again, I marvel at these things when I think back on them. In the Karate Kid movie, it's Daniel that lives in the downtrodden motel with his mom, right? But Johnny, he grew up rich, so he grew up in a mansion. And when the show starts, it's Daniel that's made something of himself. He owns the car dealership. He lives in kind of a mansion, a big house, and it's Johnny now that lives in the motel, the down and out motel. I like that twist. I like the thing that really impressed me was, Johnny's trying to mind his own business. There's a whole deal where he goes to the quickie mart or whatever, and he has that pizza that's been in the case for who knows how long. And he's out there trying to mind his own business, but Miguel is being picked on by Kyler, I think the Chinese kid, the Asian kid, and his friends. And even though Johnny's trying to mind his business, he just can't stay out of it. He goes and he defends Miguel and he beats up the kids, right? When you find out, you meet Daniel later and he invites Kyler over for dinner because his daughter Sam is dating him. He finds out that Kyler's been beaten up by this Johnny guy. And Daniel's first inclination is, oh, it's Johnny. He's never changed. When in fact, the scene in the Karate Kid where Daniel's being beat up after he douses Johnny with the shower, with the water in the bathroom, it's Mr. Miyagi that comes to his rescue and beats up Johnny and all the kids. It's the same situation, but it's a different. It's the same situation but different, and Daniel doesn't see that because he doesn't understand what the story is. That's a fantastic little twist that kind of tweaks that. I like that. You talked about the kids. I know I get what you're saying about the it's hard, with Stranger Things and all these other kid shows where the kids are the focus and there's a bunch of drama going on. I get what you're saying about that. There's maybe too much of it. But I did like how, Miguel, he dates Sam, he takes her out to the golf course, and that whole sequence is basically a shot-for-shot remake of Daniel and Allie's date from Karate Kid. I like that Robbie, who's Johnny's son, he starts the show off being angry and unfocused and just wild, and he just doesn't know where to put all his emotion. And it's Miguel who's calm and he's kind and he's shy. But at the end of the series, that's twisted. Now it's Robbie who's found his center, and now he's calm and now he's focused. And it's Miguel who's wild, and Miguel who's become kind of a bully, and Miguel who's breaking the rules. I love that. And then the other thing too, I think one of the main draws of the show is you want Daniel and Johnny to be friends so bad. They have so much in common, right? The scene at the bar where you're talking about, I like it when they sit down. Again, there's that humor. It's Johnny, it's the establishing shot of them at the bar. Johnny goes, I'll have a Coors and a Shirley Temple for the lady here. I just thought that was really funny. But, they don't want to talk, but as soon as they realize they have something in common, how they both were raised, Johnny didn't have a father figure, and so it was Kreese that took him under his thumb. Daniel didn't have a father figure, and so it was Miyagi that took him under his thumb, but very different ways of teaching them focus. And so that's why they were raised different. But you have the stuff all the circumstantial stuff that's going on where Robbie goes to Daniel's car shop to work as kind of revenge against his dad for his dad getting close to Miguel and not to him. And the scene that I liked when, Daniel and Johnny come back from the bar and they're walking up and they're talking about sparring, and Daniel's like, yeah, just one time. And I think it's Johnny that says, yeah, we can be like Apollo and Rocky in Rocky 3, which that's exactly what you want. In Rocky 3, that's when Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa became friends.
Wasn't it Rocky 2?
No, Rocky 2, they were still kind of, and that's the one where at the end, Rocky 2, he beat Apollo instead of it being at a draw. And then the third one, Apollo Creed becomes his mentor and his trainer. So they become friends. But as soon as they come back and you feel like they're on a track to becoming those friends, that's when it comes out that Robbie's, Daniel didn't know Robbie was his son, and they fight for a little bit and they separate again. And so you're just like, oh, they were so close. And I think that's the draw of the show. And the final thing I wanted to talk about was how the season ends. They have the tournament, and there is the repeat of, in Karate Kid, Daniel gets hurt and Miyagi does that. He does that and he heals him. And then it cuts, and Johnny's about to get the trophy, and Ali comes running out and whispers to the announcer, and the announcer goes, what? Daniel LaRusso's going to fight? And then because Robbie's unaffiliated and he's fighting by himself, when Daniel comes in and saves him, somebody comes out and tells the announcer something, and the announcer goes, what? Daniel LaRusso's going to coach? And so there's that dichotomy. But I liked in the end how it was Johnny's, through no fault of his own, he has those faults, and he has the scenes where he's talking to his students and he's like, I pushed you, I punched you, I'm not going to apologize. You guys need to stop being such wusses and get up. And even though he's not Kreese and he's not full on bullying these people and belittling them and beating them up and making them feel worthless, that kind of thing, the kids still learn that same lesson from being a part of Cobra Kai. And through no fault of his own, even though Johnny, spoiler, wins the tournament, Miguel wins the tournament at the end for cheating, he hasn't really won because he's alienated from his son. All his students are kind of turning into bullies, which is not what he wanted. He was trying to get away from that. Like I said, I don't know. Were there any other things that you noticed that you particularly liked as far as tweaking or manipulating our emotions?
Yeah, the one thing you talked about when Miyagi goes in and does the hand rub and heals his leg, I almost expected LaRusso to do the same thing to Robbie. I thought he was going to go in there and go. And so I'm glad they didn't, because I think they would have lost me at that moment. We're going, come on. And that's almost too much, so I'm glad they didn't do that. So that was good. And like you, I liked, like all the role reversals that kept happening where, at one point Danny was this way and then at one point Johnny was that way, and they kept switching, and vice with the kids as well. So, like I say, overall, I really enjoyed this series. I think it's really well done.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they had the season 3 trailer that came out earlier last week. I want to say this week, but it was actually last week. It's been renewed for season 4 on Netflix. It's a show that I'm more than willing to visit because they're only half-hour episodes. They're like quick bites. And so when one ends, you're like, oh, okay, I can do another one. And before you know it, you've watched 4 or 5 episodes. And they go down really easy. And again, there are those big laughs when, I like you mentioned, the scene where Daniel does that thing and then he goes, I'll get the doctor. They tweak those things because you expect it, but it gives it that different twist that makes it something new. And I guess my final word on Cobra Kai is that the only thing I'm worried about is, are they going to keep pushing the Daniel, and you've seen season 2, so you know a little more than I do, but are they going to keep pushing that relationship to the point where you just don't care anymore? I don't want it to get to that point. But like I talked about with nostalgia, I think this show does kind of beat that. There are the little beats that you expect and those little nudges that it gives you to make you, oh yeah, I remember that, to kind of bring you in. But like I said, these are actual characters that I love and I want to see what happens to them. Daniel's the one that he comes off more as a villain in this one, even though they're, he's traumatized. Johnny's traumatized. They're all traumatized. And I feel bad because, after Karate Kid, Zabka and Martin Kove, people would go up to them on the street and try to pick fights with them because they were so indelible and they made such an impression. I think that as two-dimensional as Karate Kid is, don't you think that's a good sign that it did a good job, that people had that reaction to these characters?
Yeah, I would say so. In fact, I can kind of relate to that. I usually would play villains in the roles that I would get cast in plays and things. And there was one particular role that I played in a play in college. And this guy from the college paper did a story on the play. And he wrote, like, I would be terrified if I saw this guy coming towards me in the hall. And then he comes and meets me. He was like, "You're not at all like the character you play." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I was acting." It's like, of course, But anyway, so it was kind of a compliment to have him say, "You did a good job because I was scared of you. I saw you in the hallway and I was scared. We'll walk the other way." So I can see that people would treat these actors that way because of what they know from the movie and how they portrayed their role. But anyway, I want to mention this real quick, just that they talk about Ali so much in the show and in this series that I want to see her come back. I want to see Elizabeth Shue come back. And so when I saw the end of season 2 and they kind of hint that she might come back, and then I saw the trailer for season 3 and she didn't show up in any way, I was kind of like, come on, bring her back. I want to see her back in the show. So I think that'd be a fun dynamic to have her show up again.
Yeah, that would be, I think she's done interviews where she's kind of ambivalent about it, but the show's good enough, and that it could be a draw. It would be good. I know she just showed up in The Boys, so she's not averse to being in television shows, so that would be good. I guess the last thing I want to mention is that, would it surprise you to know that Zabka and Macchio are actually very, very close friends in real life? Would that surprise you at all?
No. Not at all.
They have a chemistry, don't you think? They have, especially the scene in the car when they're singing, you can tell that there's a friendship there, that there's a warmth that they have towards each other, even though they're meant as enemies. And I think that plays really well, even though they're enemies growing up. If they just sat down and talked to each other, if they just told each other everything, then there wouldn't be a problem. And that's a big part of the show. So again, there's Cobra Kai season 1. I'm glad we're able to talk about that. After this, I'll be glad to delve into season 2. I didn't want to overload my brain too much with all that information.
Did I spoil season 2 a little bit with the whole hinting at Ali coming back?
No, because what happens is, if you're on social media enough, you do kind of pick up on these little things. I think it's something that she's on a phone or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and you get a little hint, but Johnny kind of misses it. So yeah, you didn't really spoil it too much. Like I said, if I have too much of an eye for these things, so I ended up kind of absorbing things, even if I don't know that.
Hey, real quick, as I was thinking about all those actors that I talked about earlier, with Jackie Chan and Chuck Norris and Van Damme and Seagal, they could all be in the next Expendables movie. You have Van Damme, Seagal, Chuck Norris, and Ralph Macchio.
Why not?
Expendables 12, whatever.
Right.
It's gonna be a good movie.
That would. All right. Well, there's something to look forward to, I guess. Anyway, but that's Cobra Kai. That's it for, again, hopefully we're a little bit shorter. How long? We've been talking about half an hour at least. So still a little bit of nostalgia appetizer. But it was my choice this week. Back to our normal format. What movie did you have in mind for next time?
Well, we talked about this actor in our previous episode, Keanu Reeves, and I just recently saw Face the Music. So I thought, let's do Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Let's talk about that one.
All right, that sounds great. I did just barely buy that the Bogus Journey and Excellent Adventure on DVD. I know when Face the Music came out, I tried to buy it, but everybody on eBay, I try not to spend more than $5 or $10 on a DVD anymore, and so you couldn't find those movies for less than $15. But I guess after all the hubbub died out, I did run across it in those $5 bins at Walmart, and so I did just barely buy that. So absolutely, let's talk about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So until next time, thank you for joining us again. My name is Darin Lundberg.
And I'm Johnny Craddock.
And we'll see you next time on NostalgiaCast.